Hey everybody, Matthew back with the continuation of the LJN, or my favorite LJN tournament. We are continuing on with the remainder of the random treasure figures. So in the last video, I started with the one of the figures were Legions of Doom from Random Treasures, and then I looked up and kind of realized, wait, I have duplicates of these figures, so I kind of had to put a halt to those matchups and move some other figures forward. So I am going to first start with both the Hawk and Animal figures from Legion of Doom and their counterparts, and we will move back into the rest of the 2-ups, Gloop 2-ups from Random Treasures. So first figure we're looking at is going to be Hawk of Legion of Doom from Random Treasures. Everything about this figure is absolutely sensational. The design of the pants and boots is absolutely remarkable, and even the Legion of Doom running on the top of the pants. Face paint, per usual, Random Treasures, absolutely amazing work. And then what I like is like the little muscle that you get from when you kind of like arch your back like that. That is so cool. Absolutely love the figure. I think the Legion of Doom figures are probably the highlight of the Random Treasures exclusive figures. Problem is, he's got like these arms in pose with kind of like the Nikolai Volkov or Billy Jack Haynes figures, and not necessarily a downside for the most part, but I mean, if it was up a little bit higher, it would be a much better figure. In this round, he is going to take on one of the Hawk customs from. I know the guy's name is Corey. I can't remember what his screen name was on eBay. I mentioned before, it wasn't one of my favorite sellers. I had 3 purchases from him over time, and all 3 purchases were were absolutely horrible experiences. And you know, that's one of the things I'm talking about. You know, you kind of buy this from a seller, doesn't mention any kind of destruction to the figures, and when you kind of talk to him about it, his response is, well, glue the head down. Well, I don't want to glue the head down. I shouldn't have to glue the head down. The only thing that kind of was acceptable is the simple fact that if you want to get some Legion of Doom figures from Random Treasures, for the set you're paying almost $400, whereas the set that I got from that particular seller cost me $75. So, you know, I always said Random Treasures is excessively overpriced. You know, if their figures were like $40 or something, absolutely all day long, painted figures, you know, buy them up like crazy. You know, $60, $75, I'm still in, but at $130+ per figure, and some of them aren't exactly, in my eyes, good, let alone elite figures that's worth that type of price tag. But that's an argument for later on in the video. If we were simply going off fighting pose, of all 4 Legion of Doom figures I have, this is easily my favorite based on fighting pose. But that's pretty much all it has working for it. The design and everything, obviously they try their best to kind of mirror what Random Treasures has on theirs, and it's not a bad figure at all. The dirt stains and markings, you know, you can live with it, not really a big deal. It's actually hard for me to pass on this one, because like I said, fighting pose wise, this is so much better. This is the best of the 4 figures, but I am sticking with Random Treasures Hawk to move forward to the next round. And of course with Animal is always the best figure, simply because he always has the most unique and best face paint of any of the figures. It doesn't matter if you're looking at Remco, if you're looking at the Hasbro figures, or if you're looking at the LJNs from Random Treasures. The face paint is always going to be the thing that puts him over the top. The bad thing about the Animal figure is that Hawk has a good fighting pose, while Animal has an absolutely terrible one. You know, your Ken Patera type, one-man gang type fighting pose. But again, an amazing paint job on the face. And even the contemporary one has just as good, if not better. So they tried way too hard to mimic this one after this one, I believe. I don't know if this one came out before, I doubt it. And when you actually look at the fighting pose, it makes sense that they would have tried to mimic this figure overall. And everything is identical to the original, or excuse me, the original Legion Doom Hawk figure. They keep everything the same, as does Random Treasures. There's not any change for the tag teams. So, even though the paint job is ideal and the head sculpt with the hair and everything, that actually might even be better. But still, I am going to go with Random Treasures once again. I think I just enjoy it a little bit more. And again, just kind of reviewing this figure and both figures, there is a strong possibility that I might actually like these more. And like I said, $75 for these two figures, where if you want to get these same figures from Ram Treasures with paint, you're paying almost $400 for them. And they're nice. I really enjoy them, but that to me, those are not, $400 figures. All right, so we are going to dig into the Galoob 2-Ups. Once they came out, first they came out with Ric Flair. Makes a lot of sense. If you're going to do Galoobs, you got to pick some of the best figures and some of the most elite wrestlers. And who better than Ric Flair? And of course, once you come out with Sting, you're keeping the line going strong with, basically two guys between Sting and Ric Flair. Or every time I turn on WCW, it was either that matchup or it featured Sting and Vader. You talk about the key wrestlers of the WCW at the time. Great figure from Galoob. Obviously, it's not an elite figure. I only consider 2 Galoob figures to be elite. The rest of them are either good, average, or subpar. And even though this is one of the best figures of the Galoob line, in my opinion, it's still a subpar figure based on, fighting pose. Again, if his arms were down, it would have been a really good figure. I mean, the Sid Vicious figure has his arms up too, but we'll get into that later. Everything on this, from the design of the Scorpion to the coloring all around, is perfect. And per usual, absolutely amazing face paint. And if you go on Random Treasures website, you can choose the blue. If you want the pinkish orange pants, you can get that. Or if you want the UK exclusive with black pants, they could do that too. Just put in the notes what your prerogative is. But he's going against one of the greatest figures ever. I talk about it often, and I'll probably always talk about it. Growing up, Hasbros and Galoobs. Hasbros were the cream of the crop. Galoobs were just because they were there, essentially. Galoob did not do a lot of things right. In fact, Galoob has one of the worst action figures possible. But what they did was produce the greatest wrestling action figure of all time. And so, like Hasbro, Galoob was also a 4-inch figures. They were hard plastic, so you didn't have to, if you ever dropped this on the floor, you would never have to worry about it breaking. And he had the absolute perfect fighting pose. What I talked about before, with the legs spread apart, makes it a perfect figure to be body slammed. But with the fighting pose the way it is, it also gives you that perfect body slam pose. And everything from throwing a punch to a clothesline. I mean, this figure is one that does absolutely everything. And absolute perfection. When I did episode, I believe it was episode 54. That was probably the second time I did my top listing of all of the Random Treasures exclusives. I mentioned in that video, because well, actually I can't talk about that now, can I? Alright guys, if you haven't seen episode 54, don't go back and watch it because, spoilers then. I wanted to bring that up, but I can't talk about it because then everybody's going to know where I'm going with my tournament. But perfect figure, absolutely love it. And like so many other figures, King Kong Bunny, black singlet, with your Greg Valentine, all black. I mean, just, again, it doesn't have to be super flashy, but the poses, those are what gets me, and this is an ideal figure, and one I suspect would go extremely far in this competition. Hands down, there is no contest. Sid Vicious will defeat Sting to move forward to round two. So, growing up, I did not have a lot of Galoob figures. I remember Ron Simmons because I absolutely hated that figure. Oops, sorry, I gotta pose myself again. Sorry, I really gotta find a new seating way to sit down here. So we had Ron Simmons, we had Brian Pillman, we had Ric Flair, we had the Steiner Brothers, and I'm trying to remember if there's any other figures in that line that we had, but off the top of my head, I don't think so. I think that was pretty much it. Sid Vicious, of course. I don't know if I mentioned Sid Vicious, but one of the figures that I learned about later on as I started collecting Galoobs was Barry Windham. And this is what I'm talking about. Another figure with an absolutely perfect fighting pose. And if these are the only two figures you ever had in your life and you couldn't use anything else, this is it. This is perfect. I'd rather have these two figures from Galoob than all the other figures combined because their poses are just subpar and these are just truly perfect. I mean, like I said, it's just like another Greg Valentine fighting pose and, perfect body slam. And I kind of toss these guys around with the actual Galoobs, not the LJN. And, perfection. This is a figure that I would imagine, first looking at him on the shelf, to go very far in this tournament. And of course I throw on this beautiful silver belt, which goes beautifully, goes absolutely perfect with this particular figure. And I didn't know how extensive Ram Treasures was going to go, how far they were going to go with their Galoob 2-ups. The Ric Flair was fine, bringing in Sting, okay, makes sense. And then when I got Sid Vicious, man, when they brought out Ric Flair, I was constantly, messaging them, hey, what's going on with the Sid Vicious figure? What's the plan there? And they kept telling me it was on the docket, essentially, but never really gave me a release date, unfortunately. So for months before it was released, I was talking about it. And when it finally came out, I was ecstatic. This is another one of those figures that brought a lot of joy and a lot of pleasure in my eyes. Perfect figure. Gorgeous, great color and detail all around. Perfect matchup to the actual physical Galoob figure. Now, one choice I regret, maybe, I don't know. So when I acquired Arn Anderson, obviously when I did these Galoob 2-ups, my goal was trying to keep it with the original, I guess, Series 1, U.S. Release figures. So this means that this would have been a red and white figure. But because I want to stick with the stock photo of what Random Treasures uses, I decided to stick with the black and silver of Arn Anderson. And I talked about it before. Arn Anderson, among the Galoob figures, he's one of the best figures, fighting pose-wise. Is he an elite figure? Of course not. Average to sub to below average figure overall. Color-wise, looks great with the red and white and everything. I like it better than the UK because, just plain, I like the multicolor better than the single red. But when you actually get the Arn Anderson in from Random Treasures, this is beautiful, beautiful coloring, beautiful detail. And this is one of those figures where if I ever do purchase multiples of particular figures, this is one of them. If I ever get more figures of Arn Anderson, I want the US and possibly even the UK version. If that happens, that's going to be further down the line. Yeah, that's not something I'm really focused on right now. I'd rather have, obviously, one of each than to have multiple of a single figure. So absolutely fantastic figure. Is it perfect? Not exactly, but it definitely can do the trick. And with LJN and the rubber and being able to move the arms, you could turn this into a phenomenal figure for fighting purposes. So, based on that information, which figure do you guys like best? Again, for me, no contest. Barry Windham defeats Arn Anderson. There's just no way a perfect figure like this can lose this early in this competition. So Barry Windham pushes forward to round 2. The next matchup is going to feature one of Ram Treasure's best figures, and that is Mr. Perfect. Here's the problem with the Mr. Perfect figure. He basically has this Scott Steiner Galoob fighting pose. And Scott Steiner, to me, is, fighting pose-wise, is one of the worst. Absolutely despise it. Is it worse than Ron Simmons? Not even close. I had that figure. I used the crap out of it. But it's just not a favorite of mine. And you take one of the greatest wrestlers of all time and basically give him this beautiful, overall design. Face design, the hair, absolutely amazing. But you give him this pathetic fighting pose. And that kills the figure for me so much. In reality, when I do my listing of most favorite Random Treasures exclusives, this should be like a top 5, at worst, a top 10 figure. But this is normally around, mid-tier of the different figures or towards the bottom. Why? That pose, it absolutely destroys it for me. But don't be fooled. The Mr. Perfect is one of the best from Random Treasures. And another mid-tier, mid-level, whatever you want to call it, figure from Ram Treasures is Razor Ramon. Adding Razor Ramon for the LJN collection was absolutely fantastic. And from the waist down, the figure is almost perfect. You got the little razor designs on the back of his trunks, the word Razor beautifully inscribed on the front. Everything about the boots it's a fantastic figure. But once you get chest or waist up, then it kind of goes downhill. So the face and hair design is probably one of the best, one of the top 5, top 10 head molds of the entire collection, whether you're talking original figures or customs. In the picture, stock photo, they have Razor Ramon with like a really nice, I guess hairy chest design. But when you actually get the figure in, it's like somebody spread charcoal or some kind of dirt on his chest. And it was so extremely disappointing to see that. I mean, like I said, you're not always going to get 100% identical to what you see in the photos. But it would be nice if that's how they did it. So right off the bat, that was like one of my first, introductions to this figure, is that disappointment. Fighting pose. He does that thing where he walks around the ring, machismo, yada, yada, yada. But, come on. This is supposed to be a wrestler. At least with the Hasbro figures, with like Texas Tornado and Tatanka, figures like that, with the double arm extension. At least you could close their arms up to like make it get to like a punch and body slam pose. Again, fighting pose wise, another horrible design, and it's a common theme. I understand you don't want to have the same figures or have all these figures have the same fighting pose. You want to make things different, but that right there, I'm not a fan of it. Beautiful figure overall. Mr. Perfect easily wins against Razor Ramon. Alright, so the next one, this is an interesting figure. Once I started buying up all these different Ram Treasure figures, I said to myself, I'm not even going to wait anymore. The second they come out with a new figure, I'm going to purchase it up immediately. But here's the issue. I have not been excited by a Random Treasures figure in a very long time. So when they came out with the Zeus figure, it was so unexpected, and the figure with its shininess and the colors, the fighting pose, And of course, I love No Holds Barred, so of course I'm gonna be a huge fan of Zeus. I was so thrilled and loved the figure so much that I just could not wait. I had to run downstairs, make a video, and get that posted because I couldn't wait. And I was just so enthusiastic and couldn't stop smiling the entire video. I just love that figure so much. And, once I got like Sid Vicious in, for example, I was dying for that figure to come out. And once I got it, thrilled. Barry Windham, absolutely fantastic figure. But the last several figures that Ram Treasures has come out with, I've just been so disappointed. And when they come out with this, I guess Dr. Death, Steve Williams, probably before my time. I've never seen him wrestle that I can remember. And all they did was create another Ted Arcidi. So you take a bad, well, not a horrible figure, but a bad figure with a terrible pose, and you charge us $130 for this. I absolutely despise this. I consider myself to be probably the biggest Random Treasures fan on the planet. So under no circumstance is anyone to assume that I don't like the figures or I'm not a fan of the work, because artistry of it is absolute beautiful. Don't get me wrong. I love the shop. I always said I'm going to be a lifelong customer. I stand by that assertion. But again, the last 4 figures I'm thinking, and I might have them out of order. Ultimate Warrior, gorgeous figure, absolutely loved it, but I just wasn't like obsessed with it. I bought it because it was there, but it was a figure I didn't feel that needed to be made. And when they came with Ultimate Warrior, to me that's like a waste of $130+. When they came out with, this, again, it's a Ted Arcidi figure. That's all it is. Is it 100% identical? Of course not. I mean, the hand positioning a little bit different, the fist and whatnot, but that to me, that's all I see is when I look at this figure is Ted Arcidi. And Ted Arcidi didn't have a good pose, and there's just not enough color or detail to the figure to really stand out, to really make me enthusiastic about this figure. I think that the Steve Williams figure is one of the worst figures of the Ram Treasures line. So, the next time I make my Ram Treasures exclusives, this will probably be, number out of 30 figures, let's say, this will probably come in at like 29, 28 at best. And I think I'm being generous. So in this matchup, he is going against Bob Backlund. So the first time I did the video, I think, exclusive, I had 15 figures, a Smash figure, which I didn't include in the video, so I only did really 14. I think I had him like number 13 on that list. And if I had included the Smash out of 15 figures, he would have been like 14 out of 15. He's got kind of like that B. Brian Blair type fighting pose and body type, so I'm okay overall with the figure. I don't necessarily remember him in all blue. I definitely remember him in like a red or maroon color. Later on in life, in his 40s, you kind of remember that crazy demonic look in his face when he put people in the chicken wing. So overall, fighting pose wise, it's an okay figure, not great, but it's decent enough. But the rubber is absolutely horrendous. And I always said, you always can check out, you always know when you're getting a Ram Treasures figure based on the type of rubber. And I don't know if I have a real one here. No, I don't. These are all Ram Treasures. So when you look at like the darkness of the original LJN line, and then you look at like, this kind of rubber, to me, you want him to blend in with the real thing, and these figures just don't do it. And I cannot keep this stupid towel on to save my life. So here's the thing. Do I go with one that has a little bit better fighting pose, or do I go with the one that has just a little bit better design? They're both bad figures. I don't really expect either one to make it past the second round. Easily a couple of the worst figures from Ram Treasures. And I think I'm going to go with Bob Backlund on this one. At least I'm familiar with Bob Backlund. I know some things about him, and of course I like the pose better, so I think that's pretty rational. Alright, so the next round, or the final matchup in this video, is going to feature Rick Rude. And I'll repeat once again, I have not been excited about a Random Treasures figure in a while. So when you come out with Ultimate Warrior, it didn't need to be made. When you came out with Dr. Death Steve Williams, terrible design or terrible fighting pose. Not familiar with the character, so I had no interest in him. I actually was going to pass on Warrior, but then I'm like, you know what? No, it's the Ultimate Warrior. It's a great figure. I got to get it. Then I said, okay, I'm going to pass on the Dr. Death Steve Williams figure. Eventually, I like, you know what? I have to get it. I have to keep this Ram Treasures figures going along. And then you come out with Rick Rude. So, Ultimate Warrior, I can understand Rick Rude being remade because the original LJN Rick Rude is an unplayable figure. But if you're going to come out with a remake or a Volume 2 of Rick Rude, I want the most perfect figure imaginable to be created. And, you know, face design and hair looks good. He has a good fighting pose. You know, just good. It's definitely not great. I mean, it's an okay fighting pose. The design of the pants and the boots, you know, they're good. They're average. Again, another figure I was looking at, I'm like, you know what? I made up my mind. I'm not going to get this. And then, of course, New 80s Revolution was doing a free giveaway. You know, you buy the figure, enter the contest, and, you know, your name is put in for a chance to win a free figure. And I'm like, you know what? There's usually like 20 people that buy these figures and enter that contest, so you essentially have like a 5% chance of winning. But if you're lucky enough to win, you know, you save yourself $100+ on a figure, so I went and I bought it for that reason. Here it is. All I did was bring it up to the camera and I'm already smiling. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about. This is perfection when it comes to action figures. The glossiness and, you know, just overall design of this figure is perfection. Beautiful face mold, a little tattoo of the Zeus on his head there. Everything from the pants design and color to the shoes. And he has a fantastic fighting pose. Is it perfect? Is it like the Sid Vicious pose? No. If his arms were up just a little bit like that, much better figure. But again, when I pulled this out of the box when I got it from Man Treasures, and I just couldn't stop smiling. Again, I mentioned I had to just rush downstairs to make this video because I love this figure so much, and I wanted my viewers to get the opportunity to see it and perhaps even go onto the site and buy it up immediately. And so I love their shop, but again, it's all about my personal opinion, my honest feedback as they relate to those particular figures. I will watch this video before I post it, and hopefully I don't sound like a jerk because I'd hate for Random Treasures to watch this and think, hey, this guy is complaining about us, and that's not what I'm doing, at least not intentionally. You know, I still highly recommend the store. The people who work there are fantastic, and